I almost, I almost forgot I had this going. Hello, Nightwolf, Sirloin, Ironton Auditor.
My dreams when I sleep. A penguin that can fly. A penguin that can fly. That's why you will find me up there with the birds that have wings. Up there I can see things not seen by ground things. Up there in the sky, there's a penguin flying high. Always loving life, wondering how the ground things have survived. Never seen life. Down below me, the ground things scurry by. Now among the birds, flying wild and free. See things that no one else can see. High above, away from the debris. Down below, the brown things scurry by, pounding their feet while I touch the sky. Sliding, gliding, without a care. They'll never know the wonders up here. In the sky, I'm a penguin flying high. Living life with no questions why. I wonder how the brown things carry on. Never experiencing the beauty I adore. That can fly.
Just got back from getting more coffee. Hello, my name is Zerzu Zyklin, and welcome to my channel as I get my butt positioned. How's everybody doing today? So, as you guys know, I've been recently discussing with several people over on the far right about, the statistical numbers regarding mass shootings and people who are killed by them. And it seems that the information sways primarily to the right. Now, as I've said before, I'm a political contrarian. Now, what does that mean? So, I believe that there is a Democratic and Republican Party and all the other parties, but we're going to focus mainly on the two top parties at the moment. Now, I believe that Democrats, or I keep hearing that if you're a Democrat, you're a leftist, and I don't agree with that. I also hear if you're a Republican, then you're right. I guess I should say liberal and conservative. That's where I start getting the problems. I believe once you start calling yourself a liberal, you have created a carve-out that is not Democrat. You have created a carve-out that is more on the extremist side of, I guess, you have to vote for Democrat, but you're not necessarily what I would call a Democrat. And the reason why I say that is, tell me where on my ballot I can mark that I want to be, or when I'm applying for voter privileges, voter rights, filling out my voter information. Tell me where I can put on there leftist. I can't. Tell me where I can put on there conservative. I can't. And I'll tell you why, because that's an extreme side of both. It's neither Democrat or Republican. The only thing that truly exists in our reality is Democrat or Republican. The moment you start saying left and right and conservative and liberal, and you're talking about something else. Now, the numbers that I've been putting out lately have been from Cato. And the reason why I chose Cato, specifically Cato Institute, is it's a very, very, very far-right libertarian publication. And I chose those because I keep seeing Democrats or leftists, I keep seeing them post arguments that are formed by Democratic stats, Democratic publications. And I find that that's really not a good thing to do if you're wanting to show a Republican to use any type of Democratic stats. Instead, you should use ones that they would pretty much align with, such as Cato Institute. However, I find when I post these stats, all of a sudden they get manifested into being liberal stats. There is nothing liberal about Cato Institute. It was even suggested to me today that because they use the FBI's numbers, they're using liberal numbers. Now, the study I was showing went all the way back to I don't remember. I think it was way back. I'm trying to find the information here without getting rid of other informations I have. Yeah, it looks for information all the way back as 1975, and it goes through all the way to current times. It has separations between 2020 and 2025. It also has a separation between 1975 and 2020, and a separation from after 9/11 to now. And every single one of the stats, which I've shown on my channel, show that primarily it's Republicans that are ending the lives of Americans across the United States of America at extremely high rates. Now, it's odd that I've had this conversation recently, mostly about Charlie Kirk, because, yesterday, the guy in North Carolina, I guess he goes by the name Nigel Max Edge, which his original name is Sean DeBevoise. I would have no clue how to say that. DeVevoise. DeBoise is, I guess, the best way I could say that. Maybe there's a good reason why he changed his name to Max Edge. Nigel Max Edge. Yeah. I won't argue with that. Anyway, so my plan is to try to dive a little bit into his head, and I get a very rare opportunity to do that. Need coffee. So I'll start with the situation and what happened. Around 9:30 p.m. on Sunday, Edge started shooting at customers at an American Fish Company pub. The restaurant was located by the Southport Yacht Basin. Many 911 calls came through saying that a boat had stopped in an intercoastal waterway and started firing before heading off in the direction of Oak Island. After being arrested, or after being, or sorry, he was arrested by the U.S. Coast Guard on Oak Island 55th Street boat ramp as he was trying to get his boat out of the water. I believe it looks like he used a AK, a short barrel rifle. And it seems to me like there's 3 people that were deceased and 8 other individuals that were injured. Now there were several social media posts from this guy which had very high anti-LGBT, and he argued against like genocide of straight men. He actually took it to a lawsuit, and I guess he claims that while he was in the Marines, they sent a U.S. Marine unit after him, basically trying to kill him. And he wrote a book on that. Now, normally when we look into these type of incidences, we don't never get a look into the mind of the person because they immediately scrub the interweb of all social media, so that mostly to collect it and preserve it for probably trial, and so that they don't have a tainted public view of the person. But that makes it where you really can't get into the mind of the person who committed the crime. However, this guy wrote a book, and there's some very interesting things in his book, which I've recently read, and I'm going to try to keep this to very specific pages and chapters. Now, in his book, he kind of shows a core political far-right view by framing himself as betrayed veteran, abandoned by the U.S. military, and persecuted by institutions he once served. He's kind of a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and it kind of aligns with the QAnon style targeted individual. He had quite a bit of LGBTQ rhetoric. He accuses the group of orchestrating genocide against straight men. A claim repeated in his legal filings and social media posts. Now, this puts him against the progressive social movement and civil rights. He had a conspiratorial worldview. He actually believed that he was targeted by an attack from the U.S. Marines. I guess it was a super secret LGBTQ pedophile ring, according to his exact quotes. Now that echoes a lot of QAnon, I believe. So let's I think to try to read into his head, I'm going to read 1 through 20. I believe that these will introduce a betrayal narrative, claiming that he was shot by fellow Marines and abandoned. He frames the military and government as corrupt, echoing far-right echoing the distrust of far-right institutions. Now, when I'm reading this, look for words like deep state, cover up, betrayal. I don't think we want the anarchy, that's for sure. Let's pull this up real quick. Oops, wrong button. I believe that should have got me there. I'll take a quick double check. Nope. There we go. Now, let me make it clear, I am not a combat veteran. I am reading the words of a combat veteran. Should make that very clear before I start. As a combat veteran, I offer to speak for those who cannot. In war, it is understood that you stand and fight instead of running away and deserting your friends. You keep your word despite desperately. Why am I not able to read at the moment? Give me a second, I'll start all over. Sorry, guys. As a combat veteran, I offer to speak for those who cannot. In war, it is understood that you stand and fight instead of running away and deserting your friends. You keep your word, despite desperately desiring to flee the screaming hell around you. That blast furnace of battle burns away impurities, enshrining encrusting your soul. Some things are worth dying for. Is there a way to change the lettering of this? That works. Stupid, freaky lettering. Blast furnace of battle burns away at impurities and encrusting your soul. It's also written by a madman, so maybe it's going to be very hard to read. Some things are worth dying for. Combat is scary, but exciting. You never feel so alive as when being shot at without result. You never feel so pure as that burned into your heart. Or burdened into your heart. The biggest sadness of your life is to see friends failing. The biggest surprise of your life is to survive the war. But although you are still alive outside, you are dead inside, shot through the heart with nonsensical guilt for living while friends died. Their souls define the true commandeerance that you search for the rest of your life. Home no longer exists. The world is shattered like a mirror the first time you were shot at. You live in a different world now. Your world is about waking up night after night, silently screaming. Your world is about seeking out enemies and struggling hand to hand for one more breath. You never speak of your world. People you knew before try to make contact. Words fall like bricks between you. Words fall like bricks between you. Doing this has made you alone, a stranger in a strange land. Although you walk through life alone, you are not lonely. It teaches you that every day above ground is a fine day. It teaches you to feel fortunate on ground days, or on good days. Bad days do not exist. For what is seared into a man's soul, who stands face to face with a death never changes. Now, Yellowbird, Iraq 2026 2nd Reconnaissance Battalion. Human sacrifice still happens in parts of Africa. Platoon Sergeant Kosher casually said. My ears perked up. Kosher was again making cagey statements. I guess I won't be going to Africa anytime soon. I'd hate to be that guy. The military does the ever hear of a Yellowbird? What the F is a yellow bird? I don't like where the conversation was going. A coward? Like yellow? No, yellow birds are brave. Then maybe I am. What the F is it? It's a human sacrifice, another Marine chimed in. They strap a bomb to they strap a device to you and yeah, you get what it's saying there. I wonder how much of this I'm going to have to remove. I knew that I definitely wasn't the yellow bird. If someone tried to strap a boom boom to me, they'd get shot. Simple. It was time to get ready for the briefing and the raid, but something was off. Hell, something was always effing off. I called my wife, Rachel, and her response was surprising. Oops, why are you calling me? She asked. Enjoy your death. Wow, really? Her casual tone was just disturbing as kosher's. I wasn't going to receive any solace there. I tried to clear my mind and focus on the task at hand. I knew how to get a clear target, and I was good with a gun. I already had those skills before I went into the military. I was going to take out the insurgents. All that talk of Yellowbird made me think back to when a young Marine had come up to me as I was walking back to the hooch during my first deployment to Iraq. They're going to blow me up, he had said, panicked. Who is? The squad leader. I paused at first, not knowing how to respond to such a crazy statement. Dude, they have to be effing with you. That's psychotic. What would that accomplish? Quote, I'm only 17. It was like he didn't hear my question. I'll never forget this kid because he looked younger than 17. Later word came through the grapevine that the squad leader was blowing up Marines, raiding to the raid in a Humvee. I ignored the banter and kept escalating. The woman beating piece of S is going to get fragged, someone said. Who? I asked. The married man in the platoon. I was one of the few. Well, if you frag me, you're fragging an innocent man. The tension continued. Now I want to make sure that I only go to page 20 here. The tension continued. I ignored it. We will be approaching the warehouse. I was going to X some terrorists. That was my job. But that was all that shit about wife beating. I have no clue. That's the weirdest way to word that at all. This whole thing is worded weird. My husband beats me. A woman at a Hope for the World or for the Warrior event said to me this year. Okay, a woman at a Hope for the Warrior event said to me this year. Excuse me? Oops. Later that night, I met her husband, and he was a pretty nice guy. Not the type that I would call a wife beater. He told me that he had no idea why his wife was saying that. An H4W employee told me that this Marine was going to get killed. Within a few months, he was dead. Bear with me as I put the pieces together. Yes, please, because this is sounding nuts. And we were getting on the plane for my reconnaissance deployment in Iraq months before the raid. Neil was holding out something in his hand. These are for me? What the fuck are they? Blue contacts, Neil said with a smile. This wasn't good. I had no idea what he meant by showing me blue contacts, but I knew that I had the bluest eyes of our team. When I returned from my first deployment to the Iraq, there was a Marine standing out in the open. He's pretending to be a Marine. Pretty cool, huh? An NCIS agent had said. I guess. Why would he do that? You think that it's cool? A Marine is 3/8 below him. Up after having an artillery round strapped to his chest, there wasn't anything left. Okay, this is really written where I had an easier time reading it before. There wasn't anything left. That's effing messed up. I had to wonder, was that Marine that was obliterated to pieces so-called Martin? If so, why was he being impersonated? Blue contacts, yellow bird, wife beater, shit. Maybe I was just losing my mind. Upon entering the warehouse, after the initial firefight, there were a series of bombardments. Some of the lulls between bombardments were short and others were long. There was no way to predict it. I was in a tunnel behind a wall that provided protection from the explosions, and more importantly, my platoon's thermal imagery. I kept moving. When when one spot was getting lit up, I hit the ground and crawled into the other end. It lasted a while. I could hear talking from my fellow Marines, and it occurred to me that they were trying to figure out where I was. Every window started to breathe fire, and I hit the deck to let the next bombardment carry over me. The explosions were taking their toll. When I could, I heard my ears, or I held my ears. I couldn't shoot back, so I hunkered down. My fellow Marines were looking for me in that warehouse for reasons that I couldn't explain at that time, and they weren't trying to help. I hugged the wall to hide. I heard a frag thrown into the alleyway where I was lying on the ground. My heart was pounding mercilessly in my chest. You would think that I would be conscious of what happened next. At that time, I wasn't, sadly. Now I remember everything. I could hear kosher words raising my ears. You'll be home for your mother's birthday. I cocked up my head in confusion and didn't reply. A few seconds of pain, and it will be over. Years later, I learned that Yellowbird was someone in a platoon, someone whom a platoon squad or team dedicated as sacrifice. When I was a senior Marine in recon, I heard some strange shit but kept my mouth shut. It's just the kind of man I am. Do the job, focus on the task. In elementary school, I drew a picture of myself on a tile with the quote, do what it takes. I broke the school record several times, maxed out with 21 pull-ups at an age of 10. I learned a lot this time, including my work ethic. I also learned to be humble, speak softly, and carry a big stick. Really resonated with me. I was raised as an outdoorsman, and I considered the outdoors to be the real world. As technology crept into my life, it seemed like a false world. Don't get me wrong, This is where it starts leading into the conspiratorial ideas. I wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for technology. Our species is remarkably impressive in terms of what we've accomplished. But growing up, nature made a lot of sense to me, and taught me everything I know. I was raised in New York City, New York. My father William and I spent the weekend in the Catskill Mountains, where he and my uncle owned a hunting lodge. On opening day of the deer season, a group of us make make the trek throughout the year. My father and I would hunt small game or whatever else was in the season. During the winter, we'd ski and snowboard at Windham, and in the late summer spring, we would go fly fishing for trout and swim at the nearby waterfalls. To this day, my heart remains in those mountains. Every true life lesson that I have learned was there in upstate New York. In the beginning, I just followed my father around the woods carrying a Red Ryder BB gun. Like most kids, I would ask him if I could shoot just about anything that moved. He explained the rules and ethics of becoming a true sportsman. I took everything that he said to heart, more so than he knew. This laid the foundation of my mindset dealing with firearms was a very serious matter. I understood early on the lives of both human beings and animals were not to be taken lightly. Hunting seasons were planned strategically. Out of respect for the animals, having only a brief window allowed animals time to reproduce and create offsprings. You wouldn't shoot the first thing that you saw for a variety of reasons. Perhaps there was something bigger coming your way on an an older animal. You never would shoot a female. My father taught me that hunting strategically meant keeping the best interest of the species in mind. Although hunting is natural to our species, it's often ridiculed as inhumane. We favor practices that create inhospitable conditions. I don't know why I had a hard time with that word. Inhospitable conditions for animals, raising them in factories and obtaining meat for the stores. My mom used to say that the reason I grew up to be strong and athletic was because of venison, caribou, and other wild game that I was raised on. As a kid, nature made me strong and smart and contributed to my deep sense of ethics. I'll never forget my first kill. It was as surprising to me as it was to my father. One year there was thousands of chipmunks. I was allowed to shoot at one because my father assumed that I would miss. I aimed my Red Ryder and felt it sway up and down. Despite my efforts to steady it, I squeezed off the trigger before I lost the target and hit the chipmunk square in the noggin. My father and I were shocked. I began to shake with excitement, and my dad nodded his head. Smiling, walking up to my first kill, I heard my dad say, "Good job," as I grabbed the chipmunk to bring it home. When we got there, my mom and my older sister were not pleased. They were disgusted. From their reaction, my excitement dissolved into the reality of what it was that I had done. When we returned to the mountains on the weekend, my father would work around the cabin or in the yard, and I would help him. More times than not, I went back out into the field, shooting at targets or trying trick shots. I wouldn't set I would set up a soda can and sometimes just shoot at bees. Where I'm 14. As I got older, I would chuck these clay pigeons in the air and dust them with my 20 gauge. I'd lay targets hundreds of yards away, wasting a lot of ammo trying to hit them. Over time, I learned about trajectory and windage, all on my own through experimentation. Being careful and consistent, I proved myself to my parents and earned their trust. It meant the world to me. I much preferred being out in nature to watch TV and doing stuff other kids were doing, and doing stuff other kids were doing. I still mowed lawns and worked with my father, learning all the time. This probably contributed to why I hated school. My life resides outside of school, with backhoes, bobcats, heavy equipment, and guns. I hunted caribou with my father in North Carolina in -40 weather, enjoying the mystical northern lights. In our technologically advanced society, hunting and fishing were the most natural practices that I knew. We're not above the animal world. We're very much part of it, something that people fail to experience anymore. As far as we come as a species, we're only lying to ourselves if we don't believe we're connected to everything around us. Although I love the solitude and peace that hunting provided, I still was a team player. I played football as a fullback and a linebacker, then wrestling during the winter, and lacrosse in the spring. I was the team captain for most everything. I played even though I was always a physical kid. I learned about work ethic when I was 14 years old at one of the toughest wrestling camps in the country, located in Minnesota. Please let me say this is 20. I spent a month at wrestling camp, and that experience combined with the hunting highlighted my work ethic. I learned a lot playing football because I wasn't a big guy, but I managed to hit like I was. I developed faith in my body and enduring stressful pain and painful situations. And this would prove to be very helpful when I needed it. I noticed that the more I played sports, climbed mountains, and lifted heavy weights, for a guy my size, the stronger I became, both physically and mentally. I learned the value of combining my agility and strength to become a bigger force. I never understood allowing your body to submit to any outside force. For me, it was the best way to overcome the force of another. Yeah, I wanted to stop right about there because that'll be probably the next one to go into. Doop. Now, what do I think that I get from that confused reading? Well, first off, I get that today was probably not a good day to do the show. I have a ton of other things on my brain, which is making reading quite hard. But I did learn that this person has shown that they understand the value of life. Why would they do this? Why? Now, over the next few days, I will probably be doing a couple more of these, hopefully reading a little bit better. And I wonder if YouTube didn't already kick this stream. As always, you guys are awesome. Remember, You don't have to be wise. Just don't submit to stupid. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Oh, it still looks to be live.
Down below me, the ground things pound their feet. Down there on the street, things without feet. Right beneath me, and see me, oh what I see. Things that amaze me. It fills my dreams when I sleep. A penguin that can fly. A penguin that can fly. A penguin that can fly. That's why you will find me up there with the birds that have wings. Up there I can see things not seen by ground things. Up there in the sky, there's a penguin flying high. Life, wondering how the ground things have survived. Never seen life. Down below me, the ground things scurry by. Pound among the birds, flying wild and free. See things that no one else can see. High above, away from the debris. Down below, the brown things scurry by, pounding their feet. While I touch the sky, sliding, gliding, without a care. They'll never know the wonders up here. In the sky, I'm a penguin flying high. Living life with no questions why. I wonder how the ground things carry on. Never experiencing the beauty I thought. Whoa, whoa, whoa. A penguin that can fly.